Namaste and welcome to the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston and our Sunday morning service. Om Ardram Jwalati Jyotiraham Jyotir Jwalati Brahmahamasmi Yohamasmi Brahmahamasmi Ahamasmi Brahmahamasmi Ahamevaham Mam Juhomi Swaha. Melting into the light, I am the light that shines. The light shines, the light which is Brahman. That which I am is nothing but Brahman. I exist, and I exist as Brahman. I myself offer myself into the infinite light, which is myself. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So this morning, my topic is finding our center of repose. I think I put in the bulletin our center of rest, but repose sounds more elegant, so I changed it to finding our center of repose. It's similar to a topic I gave very recently. Maybe, I'm not sure, it might have been the last talk that I gave. Since the previous Sunday there was no talk, I don't remember for sure, but I gave a talk on finding our center of gravity. And so this is a similar talk, but the emphasis is different. Finding our center of gravity is about the fact that we usually think our center of gravity is outside. And so we feel like satellites spinning around the external world. The world, society, objects of enjoyment, everything, they seem to be the center of our gravity, and we seem to be dependent on everything out there. And so finding our center of gravity was about finding our center of gravity here within ourselves. Because this is where the world emerges from here. The world of our perception emerges from here. Everything emerges from here. The heart of everyone is in the same place. It may seem counterintuitive and against our experience, but as Swami Vivekananda said, every soul, that is, every conscious, the conscious being, is in the same place. But the mind, through its ways of perceiving time and space, projects things out at a distance and in space and in time. But all of the center of reality for each one of us is right here. And so this topic is more about repose. So the emphasis is different. So first, let me speak some about activity and repose, or activity and rest. What that means. Buddha famously said, "Sarvam kshanikam kshanikam." Everything is momentary. That means that nothing is at rest. Everything is changing. Everything is changing every moment. So he was pointing to the dynamic nature of everything in our experience. Now, he said that there was repose, that repose was in nirvana. But short of nirvana, he said everything is dynamic. As the Greek thinker Heraclitus said, we never step into the same river twice. Or as he said it, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, nor is he the same man. That is, because everything is changing. The river, we think of the Mississippi or other rivers as being a thing, but it's nothing but change. The water is constantly flowing through. Even the banks are always changing. And as Heraclitus said, it's not the same river, and he's not the same man who steps into the river, because we're constantly changing. And that we know in more detail now through modern science, through modern biology, physiology, how the body is constantly changing. and how the atoms themselves are dynamic, subatomic particles. Everything is dynamic. And so we come to Sri Krishna in the Gita, who says in the 3rd chapter, Nahi kaschit kshanavapi jatutishtatya karmakrit. No one remains without action even for a moment. The karyate hyavasha karma sarva prakriti jayar gunahi. Everyone is forced to be active by the gunas, the qualities of nature. And so he says that everyone is forced to be active every moment. No one can be still even for a moment. That we're always active. The body is always active. The mind is always active. Nature is always active. And of course, there's the famous idea of the dance of Shiva. There was a famous book on modern science and its relationship to Eastern mysticism, published back in the early 1970s. And it was not the first book to popularize modern scientific ideas, but I think it was the first book that specifically tied modern ideas of modern physics to Eastern mysticism, Vedanta, Buddhism, etc. It was by Fritjof Capra, the Austrian-born American physicist. And in its time, in the 70s, it was a very, very famous book. It's been not that it's been proven wrong, but it's been superseded by many, many books in the same genre since that time. But it was a very important book in its time. And I mention that because he says that he came to the experience. Of course, he came to that experience through LSD, but he did come to the experience of the dynamic nature of the universe. And he saw the universe as the dance of Shiva. And so in recognition of that, and the recognition that this universe is like the dance of Shiva, constantly dynamic, incredibly dynamic, the Large Hadron Collider, the CERN Collider in Switzerland, they have outside, as many of you perhaps know, if you see a picture of the institute, they have a large dancing Shiva, the image of the dancing Shiva, the Nataraja, in front of their entrance. And so that's in recognition of the fact that, yes, modern physics sees this as a dance. And the extraordinary dynamic nature of everything from the microcosmic, from the subatomic to the macrocosmic, everything in motion, everything dynamic. And so then, where do we have rest? Where does rest come in? Of course, we have sleep. But even in sleep, much of sleep is spent in tossing and turning, especially for those of us who are getting older. And then even when we're asleep, much of it is spent dreaming, where the mind is still active. The body, of course, is subdued activity in sleep, but it's still active somewhat. Otherwise, you wouldn't continue breathing and you'd die. But the body is still active even in sleep. The mind is active in dream. It's only in deep sleep, deep, profound, dreamless sleep, that we have real rest. The body may still be active, but for us, subjectively, there is no body in that state. The body is something others see. We don't experience the body. There's profound motionlessness of the mind. And so when we wake up from deep sleep, as was recognized in the Upanishads, we say, oh, I slept beautifully. I was so deeply asleep, I didn't know anything. I was completely zonked. There was nothing there. I just have a complete absence of all thinking. So in deep sleep, we have real rest. So even in dreams, we don't have that. But then deep sleep is apparent unconsciousness. As Vedanta says, it's not real unconsciousness because we are actually aware in deep sleep. Otherwise, we wouldn't know when we woke up that we didn't know anything. We wake up and said, God, I was just so zonked, I didn't know anything. We normally think that, well, I wake up and realize that a lot of time has passed, and so I infer that I didn't know anything because I don't remember anything. But no, Vedanta says we actually have a memory of not knowing anything. And so deep sleep is said to be a state of perception, but what we perceive is the absence of all thought and activity, the absence of the universe, the absence even of the ego. It's not that, okay, now I'm not doing anything here, I'm not seeing anything. There's not even the sense of I seeing. It's just awareness of nothing happening, of there being no thing and no activity. So that, of course, is nice when it lasts. When we get deep sleep, we feel so good afterwards. When we get sufficient deep sleep, we feel wonderful afterwards. But again, it's a state of apparent unconsciousness. And so if a doctor told you that, well, I can put you in the state of deep sleep so you'll remain there for the rest of your life, you'll never come out of deep sleep, we wouldn't jump at it so quickly. We'd say, well, no, I like deep sleep, but I don't want to stay there. And so even though that is a state of great repose, we don't want it forever. So it's nice while it lasts, but we want it to end. And so that, in our normal experience, is the closest we get to actual rest. That's the closest we get. And if a person is not allowed to have a deep dreamless sleep over a number of days, then it causes all sorts of problems. We may not get much of it every night, but if we don't get it once in a while, then it begins to cause mental, emotional, and physical problems as well. But that is the closest we get to rest. Otherwise, everything is dynamic in our experience. Death seems to offer rest. But of course, most people don't think, well, I need some rest, I think I'll die. We don't think like that. And yet when someone does die, we say, may he rest in peace, may she rest in peace, etc. Or so-and-so has gone to her final rest. So in popular thinking, we think of death as rest. We say that, she did so much in her life and she suffered so much, now she's got her deserved rest. Of course, if she were still alive and you offered her that rest, she probably wouldn't have taken it. but it's a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of coming to terms with death, thinking that, well, it is rest. But is death actually rest? No, death itself is not rest. Because the dying soul finds himself in another world of experience. And yes, for some time, there's the experience of great relief to be freed from the body. That many people who have had near-death experiences report that there's this feeling of freedom when freed from the physical body. But that's not complete freedom. That's not enlightenment. That's not complete freedom. One feels freed from the body, but then one begins to experience other things, and then one takes on one has a subtle body, and then depending on the course of one's karma, one takes birth again in a physical body, and things begin over again. So even death is not really rest. But death seems to be the only rest other than deep sleep. That's a rather dreary thought. And I've known people, this is an actually recognized psychological condition. I've known people who are afraid to go to sleep because they're afraid that they might just disappear. They might not wake up. And it's a terrible condition to have, that you're afraid to go to sleep. But that actually can be there because it's associated in the mind somehow with disappearing, with death. So, and it's also not that we want to be inactive. We like the idea of rest, and we like to take a nap. We like to get a good night's sleep. But we plan our vacations. We set the alarm so that we get up in the morning because there's something we want to do. Yes, sometimes we set it because we'll get fired if we don't arrive at work on time. But sometimes it's because we have something we want to do. I remember a silly thing, no consequence, but just a silly memory from my childhood, that in those days, in the early 50s, the first thing that would come on television, or actually, the first thing that you'd see on television was what did they call it? The pattern, what was that called? It was a pattern that came on the TV. So if you needed, you could adjust your TV to stop the screen from rolling and doing other things. There's a name for the pattern anyway. I've forgotten it now. And so as a kid, for little kids, everything is new, everything's exciting. And so I wanted to wake up to see the pattern on the television. It was about as interesting, or was as interesting as watching a washing machine turn around and around. There's nothing to it. In fact, it's less interesting. The washing machine has a lot more going on than this pattern had. but still, it was a big deal. I want to wake up to see that. So we plan our vacations, we plan our activities, we set our alarms so that we can get up. We enjoy activities. We look forward to weekends when we can indulge our hobbies and so forth. And so it's not that we want complete rest. We enjoy activity as well. So it's really is what we really want, is our deepest need for relative rest so that we can get on with activities. It would seem to be, for most people, that what we really want is enough rest so that I feel good and strong and I can face the challenges of life. So we enjoy a good night's sleep, we enjoy a Sunday afternoon nap, we enjoy the vacation, we enjoy weekends and so forth. But there are times when we want more profound rest, when the desire for deep and long rest comes to us. If there's a tragedy in our life, if there's a terrible loss in our life, or if suddenly, for whatever reason, our ordinary lives begin to seem meaningless, then we want to retire from the whole thing. That also comes to us sometimes. There's a beautiful poem of Swamiji that I want to read to you. It's my favorite of his poems, called My Play Is Done. It was written in, I think it was 1895, in the winter of 1895, in America. A very beautiful poem which tells of a sort of spiritual world weariness. Because a time comes when we've experienced so many things, and the time must come to all of us at some point. It may only last for a few moments, or it may be deeper, when we think, is this all that there is? I'm doing all of this, I'm traveling to different countries, I'm meeting people, I'm having adventures, doing all of these interesting things. But whatever we do, there comes a point where we feel, is this all? Is it just going to be more of the same? When we have been deprived of experiences, then we look, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do the other thing. When we've had opportunity to experience various things, then we think, is this all? Is this all that there is? And so sometimes we want something deeper. And of course, Swami Vivekananda, he was in search of true rest in the divine. So his poem says, ever rising, ever falling, with the waves of time still rolling on I go, from fleeting scene to scene ephemeral, with life's currents ebb and flow. Oh, I am sick of this unending force. These shows, they please no more. This ever running, never reaching, nor e'en a distant glimpse of shore. From life to life I'm waiting at the gates. Alas, they open not. And here, of course, he's speaking of the gates to the divine. From life to life I'm waiting at the gates. Alas, they open not. Dim are my eyes with vain attempt to catch one ray long sought. On little life's high, narrow bridge, I stand and see below the struggling, crying, laughing throng. For what? No one can know. Yes, a time comes when we begin to think, what is all of this about? What is it all about? What's the meaning of all of it? There's so many struggles, so many problems, so many difficulties. And yes, when we're feeling strong and enthusiastic in things that we have in mind that we want to do, and we're full of purpose and motivation, yes, we feel like we can face down anything. But then time comes when we think, for what? As Swamiji asks, and he answers, no one can know. In front yon gates stand frowning dark, and in front yon gates stand frowning dark, and say, no farther way. This is the limit. Tempt not fate. Bear it as best you may. Go, mix with them, and drink this cup, and be as mad as they, that is the madding throng. Who dares to know but comes to grief? Stop then, and with them stay. And then Swamiji coming back to his own speaking for himself. Alas, for me, I cannot rest. This floating bubble, earth, its hollow form, its hollow name, its hollow death and birth, for me is nothing. How I long to get beyond the crust of name and form. Ah, ope the gates. To me they open must. Open the gates of light, O Mother, to me thy tired son. I long, oh long, to return home. Mother, my play is done. So he's speaking of the state that comes to one when one feels that, no, I've had enough. I've had enough, I've done enough, I've seen enough. Is this all that there is? You sent me out, again Swamiji addressing the Divine Mother, you sent me out in the dark to play and wore a frightful mask. Because yes, that's what we see in life, is the frightful mask of the Divine Mother. It is just a mask. But to us, as children of the Divine Mother, forgetting that it's the Divine Mother, it's enough to scare us. You sent me out in the dark to play and wore a frightful mask. Then hope departed, terror came, and play became a task. That's the case with all of us. We're here to play. Life is play. It's the dance of Shiva. It's the play of the Divine Mother. We came to play, but it becomes a task. Tossed to and fro from wave to wave in this seething, surging sea, the sea of samsara, of passion strong and sorrows deep, grief is and joy to be. How often that's true. Grief, yes, life is a mixture of happiness and sorrow, but sometimes grief seems to be so much present, and joy is something we're reaching for, trying to get to. Where life is living death, alas, and death, who knows, but is another start, another round of this old wheel of grief and bliss. Yes, because when we die, that's not rest. It's just turning the wheel again and starting over. Where children dream bright golden dreams, too soon to find them dust, and I look back to hope long lost and life a mass of rust. I remember when I was a teenager, I was about 16 at that time, or I was 16 now that I think of it. I had gone over to see a friend, and my friend's mother was very fond of me. And so she, the first person, all of us have an experience when we're growing up, when the first person treats us like, the first adult treats us like an adult, like an equal. And for a kid, that's suddenly a surprise. My God, they spoke to me like an adult. It wakened something up in us. So she treated me that way. And so she took me aside one day and told me that, you know, one of my friends, they tell their children that life is hard. And so you got to get used to it. Life is no fun. It's hard. So you better get used to it now. And so I thought that next she was going to say, and that's wrong. Life is not hard. It's so wonderful. It's so full of joy and everything is wonderful. Then she really shocked me. She said, they'll find that out on their own. I thought, what? They'll find that out on their own? I couldn't compute it because, of course, for a young person, life looks like a bowl of cherries that's just waiting to be plucked. As soon as I can get out of the control of my parents who won't let me do what I want to do, then I'm going to have fun. So that's where children dream bright golden dreams, too soon to find them dust. And I look back to hope long lost, and life a mass of rust. Too late the knowledge age doth gain. Scarce from the wheel we're gone, when fresh young lives put their strength to the wheel, which thus goes on, from day to day and year to year. 'Tis but delusion's toy, false hope its motor, desire its nave, its spokes are grief and joy. I go adrift and know not whither, save me from this fire, rescue me, merciful Mother, from floating with desire. Turn not to me thy awful face, 'tis more than I can bear. Be merciful and kind to me, To chide my faults forbear. Take me, O Mother, to those shores where strifes forever cease, beyond all sorrows, beyond tears, beyond even earthly bliss, whose glory neither sun nor moon nor stars that twinkle bright, nor flash of lightning can express. They but reflect its light. Let nevermore delusive dreams veil off thy face from me. My play is done, O Mother. Break my chains and make me free. So that is the real rest that Swamiji is seeking, the rest that all of us someday will recognize that that's what we've been seeking. That's what we've been seeking. There's only one place to find it, and that I will come to in a minute. Meditation offers the promise of rest, and so many people take up the practice of meditation, which is good. Meditation is a wonderful thing to do, but we soon find that meditation itself is work. Okay, you're supposed to repeat your mantra, you're supposed to do a visualization, you're supposed to focus the mind and everything, and the mind wants to do everything except what you're asking it to do. And so you have to work to keep bringing the mind back, and it runs away, you catch it, you bring it back, it runs away, you catch it, you bring it back. And so even meditation, which we took up because we thought, now I've found the secret, now I'm going to find real bliss and real peace and mental peace and everything, that also becomes another job. It's a good job, a necessary job, but it's a job. So the unfortunate truth is that there's no real rest short of deep sleep, which is temporary. We can't stay there long. We can't even stay there as long as we would like to. And as I said before, we don't really want to stay there forever, but we would like to stay there a little longer than we normally do. But we can't. So nothing short of deep sleep or samadhi. That's a very depressing thought. The unfortunate truth is that there's no real rest short of temporary deep sleep, which we can't control, or samadhi, which seems so difficult to access. In samadhi, there is deep, deep rest, because there the mind has become silent. The body is forgotten. The mind is silent. And so there's the experience of timeless peace. The sense of time practically goes away. But even that we can't control until we attain to the highest samadhi, where we reach a state where we remain in absolute peace. Absolute peace. Not the peace of death, not the peace of deep sleep, but the peace of still awakeness, consciousness, enlightenment. A state of infinite awareness, infinite knowledge, infinite joy, infinite bliss, infinite fulfillment, timeless and spaceless. That's where we find our true and complete rest. So again, on the one hand, it's not a very hopeful thought. It's a depressing thought because samadhi itself is difficult to attain. And even that doesn't last until we attain to the highest samadhi. But it's also a hopeful truth because it shows that there is rest. There is rest. And there are two paths to that rest. Of course, if we take the four yogas, we could say there are four paths, but among the four yogas, there are two which are primary. And that is the path of devotion and the path of knowledge. As I've said in other talks, the path of Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga, they're not so much interested in the nature of reality. They are techniques. They are means of practice. But Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, the path of knowledge and the path of devotion, those are concerned with the nature of reality. Whether I approach reality as pure consciousness, as existence itself, as the self, or whether I approach it as the beloved divine being, the object of my love. So in the path of devotion, we can begin to find rest even here, even we as aspirants, before we attain to samadhi. Yes, final rest is in full illumination. That is absolute rest, eternal rest. but not the rest of deep sleep nor the rest of death. It's real rest where we know, and we know that we are everything, that there's no limitation whatsoever, nothing impinging on us, nothing which can control us, nothing which can limit us. So that is the real and complete rest. But even now, we can begin to experience relative rest by following one of these two paths of jnana or bhakti, knowledge or devotion. So in the path of devotion, there is the idea of surrender. Surrender is a tremendous thing, that if we begin to practice it, to surrender to the will of God. Let me speak in terms of the Divine Mother, but this not to limit God to one gender, but I have to either speak of it as it, which distorts the reality, because it, in our experience, is a rock or something which is dead, dull, and insentient. Or I have to speak of it as he or she. So let me speak of it as the Divine Mother, but understanding that God is he, she, and infinitely beyond. So surrendering to the Divine Mother, realizing that I am the child of the Divine Mother, and the Divine Mother will take care of everything. I don't have to worry about things. I can do that if I come to the point where I'm willing to accept the experiences that come to me, good and bad, pleasurable and painful. That whatever comes, let me accept it. That's difficult. I have to work hard to be able to accept the difficult experiences. Everyone can accept happy experiences, but I have to be able to accept whatever comes given to me by the Divine Mother, that everything that comes to me is given by her. And that Mother is wearing a frightful mask right now in the midst of this experience I'm having, but it's just a mask. Behind the mask is the Divine Mother, the all-loving Mother. So we always have to remember this idea, that the idea of Kali as the Divine Mother in particular is that that's the frightful mask of the Divine Mother, but it's only a mask. That Kali is the all-loving Mother. She's the all-loving Mother. And even death itself is a gift of the Mother, part of her play. And it's a gift full of grace. Everything comes as a grace from the Divine Mother if we can recognize her behind the mask. And so if I can learn to accept experiences, whatever comes my way, which is easy to say when I'm sitting here and comfortable and I've got my ginger tea and my water to soothe my throat and I'm sitting in a comfortable chair, and though I can't get up whenever I want to, or at least it would look pretty silly if I just got up and walked out. I can get up in just a little bit and do what I want. So it's easy to say that, yes, surrender to the Divine Mother. Everything comes from the Divine Mother. The test is when I face difficulties, when I face pain, when I face suffering, when things are not going my way. Then I have to be able to accept that also and realize that, yes, this also comes from the Divine Mother. And to work to try to accept it as such. So surrendering to the divine, learning to do that, then I begin to experience peace even here and now. There's a beautiful book, a Christian book, by a very saintly man. He's not an official saint of the church, because to be sainted in the Christian church, you have to, certain things have to be fulfilled, which in our opinion don't have anything to do with sainthood. So he was a very saintly man, but not sainted by the church. Jean-Paul de Caussade. He wrote a beautiful book, which is available even now in English, he didn't write it in English, I think he wrote it in French. But it's called Abandonment to Divine Providence, or Self-Abandonment to Divine Providence. It's a beautiful book when he taught this idea of surrender. And so in Ramanuja, also the great philosopher of devotion, he said that if you want to follow the path of devotion, the strict path of devotion, there are all of these qualifications you have to follow and all of these rigors you have to go through. But then he says there's another path, the easy path, the path of prapatti, surrender. Then you don't have to worry about qualifications. You don't have to worry about austerities. You don't have to just surrender to God. Just if you can just surrender to God, accept that which happens, accept that which happens. Uh, so we have to understand how to accept what happens. It's like the flowing of a river. A river, the water flows. And if you enter into the river, then the river will carry you forward with its flow. And so time is like a river, it's flowing. And we are in time. We're in the river of time. Time is carrying us all forward, even now. Every moment we're being carried forward by time. And so we don't have to make things happen. The river is doing everything. What we have to do is to participate with the flow. If we come up against a rock, then push ourselves around it and let the flow carry us forward. If we come into a log jam, then push ourselves around it and go forward. If we come into a dead spot in the water where the water is not moving, then push a little bit and get back into the flow. And so all we have to do is to participate. And so surrender is like that, is recognizing that there is a flow to time and things are taking care of themselves. That's quite contrary to our usual way of thinking, especially the American, even more than the European way of thinking. European also, but American even more, where we're used to taking the bull by the horns and making things happen. Nothing's going to happen unless you get out there and make it happen. Another silly memory from my childhood, I was once at my grandparents' house with the whole family. We lived next door to my grandparents at that time, having Sunday dinner. And my aunt asked me after I had finished everything and my plate was empty, she asked me, would you like some more green beans? And I said, yeah. I'd been sitting quiet for a while, finished with everything. And I said, yeah, I'll take some more. And so then she scolded me. She said, nobody in life is going to give you anything. What are you doing just sitting there? You have to ask for it. No one is going to give you anything. You have to ask. If you want green beans, you have to say it. And I was so shocked because I hadn't even thought about eating more green beans until she asked me. It wasn't that I was sitting there thinking, boy, I wish I had more green beans, but nobody's asking me. I hadn't even thought about it. But that's our usual attitude towards time, that you got to make things happen. Nobody's going to give you anything. No, life brings everything that we need. We don't even need to go out and look for austerities. Life gives us plenty of austerities every day. There's plenty of challenges every day, which are our natural austerities. Facing them. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it says that if you are ill and you can't find a cure for your illness, then take your illness as a tapasya. Take your illness itself as tapasya. And so everything in life is like that, those things that we can't fix. So again, this doesn't mean that if there's a problem that you can fix, you don't fix it. No, that's part of working your way with the current of time, pushing past a boulder, pushing past a log jam. But you're working with circumstances, not trying to create circumstances. So surrender means that, flowing with the flow of time. It requires faith, faith that there is one who is looking after me, that there is a mother heart. Whether we think of God as he or she, God has a mother heart, that there is one with a mother heart who's looking after me. And that what I really need is coming. If I'm suffering and I don't find a way out from it, then for some reason, this is what I need. We take karma in the wrong way. Even in India, it's usually taken in the wrong way. We take karma as punishment, reward and punishment. If times are good, then, I must have been a good person in my last life and I'm having a merry old time. And if things are bad, I think, I'm being punished for something I did. And we try to think of something that I might have done that caused me to be punished. And if I can't think of it in this life, then, it must have happened in the last life. But no, karma is not primarily about reward and punishment. Karma is about the experiences come to me because I need them. Even the bad experiences, there's something in me that needs this experience in order to grow. There's something in this experience that needs to be transformed by this experience. There's something that I have to work out, something that has to be balanced within me. So to take experience as something which is, karma means that the experience I'm having is custom made for me. for each one of us. The experiences I have, the circumstances I have are custom made for me. That doesn't mean being completely passive and accepting abuse and things like that. No, it doesn't mean that. Maybe what you need to learn is to stop the abuse. Again, pushing your way around obstacles, pushing your way around a logjam. But it means that you participate with the circumstances that come to you. And so this idea of surrender is beautiful. And is a way for us to begin to experience rest. Begin to experience rest, even in the midst of dynamic life. Again, here, everything is dynamic, short of enlightenment, but we begin to find a point of repose in the midst of the difficulties of life. We begin to find, and I saw that it's wonderful to have it exemplified for us. It's very rare to have that advantage, but if we have it, it's a wonderful thing. I remember people like Ram Moy Maharaj, Swami Gaurishwarananda, a disciple of Holy Mother, who was very close to the Mother. He even used to massage her feet and things like that, do all kinds of. He would make chapatis with the Mother when Mother was cooking. The Holy Mother used to call him her daughter. She said, Ram Moy is my daughter. And so he was had been very, very close to the Holy Mother. But with him, you saw, when I first met him at Bellermut in 1975, when I had gone for training center, then I had heard about him, and when I saw him and made pranam and spent a few minutes in his company, I thought, he's so simple, I don't see anything special. Because many of the great Swamis I'd seen who were very gambhir, very deep and profound, and there was an aura of dignity about them that wouldn't let you come too close. There was something about them that you knew that you can go up so close and pay your respects, but you can't chit-chat with them. Ram Moy Maharaj was just like a child, And so at first I wasn't impressed. Then I began to think, no, I've never seen anybody, no adult, who is so childlike, so free, so wonderfully free. I'd never seen anything like that. And then I saw, no, that is his spirituality. And then I saw with him and with others who had been close to Holy Mother that they had no fear of anything. They had no fear of anything. Ram Moy Maharaj had been in various difficult circumstances, running different centers and having to collect funds to run the centers and things. By this time, he was head of Jairambati, and he was elderly and still had to face the difficulties there. But he always had this attitude that Mother is there. Mother will take care of everything. Mother used to tell the devotees that always remember that you have a mother. Always remember you have a mother. And so that stuck in these disciples of Holy Mother. They had this sense of being completely carefree. Nothing in the world could make them afraid because they knew behind them was the Holy Mother. And so it was an extraordinary thing to see. So if just knowing that God is there, the Divine Mother is there, that there is a mother heart to the universe, then that makes surrender possible. So then there's also the path of knowledge through which we can come to rest as well, and we can begin to feel something of that rest even now. So again, there's the ultimate rest of enlightenment, which is real, actual, eternal rest, but rest which is wide awake, full of consciousness, full of awareness, infinite. But even in our present lives, we can begin to feel something of that through the path of knowledge as through the path of devotion. There's a verse in Ashtavakra Samhita, Yadi deham pratakritya chiti vishramya tishtasi. If you separate yourself from the body and remain in consciousness, adunaiva sukhi shanto bandha mukto bhavishyasi. I can't read my own writing. So if you separate yourself from your body and rest in consciousness, then even now, adunaiva, this very moment, you will experience peace and happiness and freedom from all limitation. And so, of course, separating ourselves from the body, knowing that I'm not the body, and resting in consciousness, it sounds wonderful. Try it. It's not so easy. It sounds very good. But it's important to hear it, because if we hear it, then it gives us something to point towards, and we can begin to move in that direction. There's another verse in Ashtavakra where he says, Kritam nakati janmani kayena manasa gira dukkhamaya sadam karma tadadhya. Dukkhamaya sadam karma tadadhyaparamyatam. For how many births you have done hard and painful work with your body, your speech, and your mind. For how many births we've done hard work with the body, speech, and mind. Therefore cease at least today, he says. Adunaiva. Cease at least today. And then in another verse he says, Vyapare kidyate yattu nimeshon meshayorapi tasya lasya dhurinasya sukham nanyasya kasyachit. That happiness belongs to that master idler. Happiness belongs to that master idler to whom even the opening and closing of the eyelids is an affliction, and to none else. That is, to that master idler for whom even taking responsibility for opening and closing the eyes is too much work. For such a one, real peace comes. That is, one who says, I do nothing, I'm pure consciousness, I have no activity. It's the gunas of Prakriti that do everything. So the master idler is the one who says that even opening and closing the eyelids is more work than I want to do. Let them go. I'm not the eyelids. I'm not in control of them. Let them go. I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. I'm not speech. So this, of course, sounds like a harder path. And for most people, it is harder because it's more abstract. But for those who have that temperament, it's a wonderful path to get a feeling for what consciousness is, and to rest in consciousness, and to feel that I'm not the body. I knew one of our devotees in Santa Barbara. When I knew her, she was living in Santa Barbara. She was from New York. Catherine Whitmarsh, who had the devotee name of Prasanna. She lived across the street from the convent in Santa Barbara. And she had, as a little girl of 2.5, she had seen Swami Vivekananda, played with Swami Vivekananda at Ridgely Manor. She was related to Mr. Leggett, and so spent her summers there at Ridgely Manor. And so Swamiji had played with her, talked to her, blessed her one day, chanting Sanskrit, touching her head and chanting Sanskrit. So she became a lifelong devotee. She was especially close to Josephine MacLeod, Swamiji's great devotee. And so she told me in her old age, she was in a wheelchair and had very bad arthritis, very painful arthritis, and advanced enough so that pain medication didn't help. It might take some of the edge off a little bit, but the constant pain. And she used to tell me, the only thing that gives me relief is the staying in the idea that I'm not the body. I'm not the body. That's the only thing that gives me relief. Just knowing that I'm not the body, seeing the pain as an object which is foreign to me. So, yes, that idea of resting in consciousness, we can, if we get a feeling for it, then we can begin to do that. We begin to find a point of repose. That my point of repose is here, within myself, within consciousness, not in the body, not in the mind. So before I say a few more words about the path of knowledge and repose, let me say that what I'm talking about is whether through devotion or through the path of knowledge, we find a point of repose for the time being until we can come to the point where we attain to enlightenment and the final infinite repose. But we need to find a point of repose now. A relative point of repose, which is tied to that spiritual ideal. Again, through the path of knowledge, the way to do that is to change our sense of identity. There's a beautiful letter, the most beautiful letter, I think, and many people think, of Swami Vivekananda's many beautiful letters that he wrote to Josephine MacLeod in April of 1900 from San Francisco. Josephine McLeod was at that time, I think I forget, I think she'd gone back to New York by that time. She was no longer with him. She'd come to Los Angeles with him, but then she had to leave. So Swamiji says to her, "Work is always difficult. Pray for me, Joe, that my works stop forever and my whole soul be absorbed in Mother. Her works she knows. I am well, very well mentally. I feel the rest of the soul more than that of the body. The battles are lost and won. I have bundled my things and am waiting for the great deliverer. Shiva, O Shiva, carry my boat to the other shore. After all, Joe, I am only the boy who used to listen with rapt wonderment to the wonderful words of Ramakrishna under the banyan at Dakshineshwar. That is my true nature. Works, activities, doing good, and so forth are superimpositions. Now I again hear his voice, the same old voice, thrilling my soul. Bonds are breaking, love dying, work becoming tasteless. The glamour is off life, only the voice of the Master calling. I come, Lord, I come. Let the dead bury the dead. Follow thou me, quoting Christ. I come, my beloved Lord, I come. Yes, I come. Nirvana is before me. I feel it at times, the same infinite ocean of peace, without a ripple, without a breath. I am glad I was born, glad I suffered so glad I did make big blunders, glad to enter into peace. I leave none bound, I take no bonds. Whether this body will fall and release me, or I enter into freedom in the body, the old man is gone, gone forever, never to come back again. The guide, the guru, the leader, the teacher has passed away. The boy, the student, the servant is left behind. The sweetest moments of my life have been when I was drifting, and I am drifting again with the bright, warm sun ahead and masses of vegetation around, and in the heat, everything is so still, so calm, and I am drifting languidly in the warm heart of the river. I dare not make a splash with my hands or feet for fear of breaking the marvelous stillness, stillness that makes you feel sure it is an illusion. I come, Mother, I come. In thy warm bosom, floating wheresoever thou takest me, in the voiceless, in the strange, in the wonderland, I come. A spectator, no more an actor. Oh, it is so calm. My thoughts seem to come from a great, great distance in the interior of my own heart. They seem like rains, distant whispers, and peace is upon everything, sweet, sweet peace. Like that one feels for a few moments just before falling into sleep, when things are seen and felt like shadows, without fear, without love, without emotion. Peace that one feels alone, surrounded with statues and pictures. I come, Lord, I come. The world is, but not beautiful or ugly, but as sensations without exciting any emotion. Oh, Joe, the blessedness of it. Everything is good and beautiful, for things are all losing their relative proportions to me. My body among the first. Om, that existence. So that is the peace that we want to come to, that extraordinary peace. I've never read anything in the many statements of religious literature of the world and read many statements of spiritual experience and so forth. I've never read anything so beautiful as this of Swamiji. So for us ordinary people, first thing to do is to not look for peace where it's not, to not look for it where we can't find it. But then to begin to look for it and practice it where it can be found, through surrender, through resting in consciousness, because then by doing either of those practices, we've entered into the stream of spirituality, which will carry us forward. It may seem many times like we haven't made any progress. It may seem like years go by and we're the same people. But no, if we have taken up practice, if we've tried to go in that direction, then we have entered into the stream. And the stream will carry us forward, even us ordinary people. So part of the practice is surrender or resting in consciousness and being the witness. Part of it is the practice of detachment and inner renunciation. Not outer renunciation, but inner renunciation and detachment. That we have to practice. Even to lead an ordinary life, one has to practice detachment and renunciation. These are laws of existence. It's not just in the spiritual realm. Even every day, all of us have to practice detachment and renunciation. It's just that in spiritual life, we try to do it consciously, so that things are not ripped out of our hands, but our hands are open. If it's not mine anymore, it's going to go anyway, so I let it go. And not taking ownership of things and situations. So whether we enter into the stream of the mantra, that is repeating the mantra and repeating it until the stream of the mantra is awakened, that itself will carry us back to God, whether it's through surrender, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through prayer, somehow entering into the stream of meditation so that we rest in God or rest in consciousness, because both are the same. Whether we rest in consciousness or rest in God, we're resting in the same thing, the personal, impersonal reality. So we have to do what we have to do in life. We have to give what we have to give. Life is constantly demanding things from us. So we have to give what we have to give. We have to do what we have to do. But know that there is a mother heart to the universe. And know that I am in the stream of life that is carrying me forward. And if I can participate with it, everything in life is designed to carry us towards that. We think, and our ordinary experience is, everything is taking me away from God. No, that's because I haven't learned to participate with the flow of events. If I can learn that, I find that the current of life is taking me towards God. It's my resistance which has caused the trouble. And know that ahead of us is that rest which Swamiji speaks of, the rest of enlightenment, not the rest of death, not the rest of unconsciousness, but the rest of still illumined, wondrous consciousness. So let me close by reading one more thing, a poem of St. John of the Cross, the devotional poem of the dark night of the soul. Of course, it was written originally in Spanish, and as with all poetry, the original Spanish is more beautiful than any translation, but even the English translation is beautiful. One dark night, fired with love's urgent longings, the sheer grace, I went out unseen, my house being now all stilled. My house means the body and the senses. He had stilled the body and the senses through the intensity of his love for God. And so he went out of the house, that is, he went into the heart. In darkness and secure by the secret ladder disguised, the sheer grace. In darkness and concealment, my house being now all stilled. A great Swami once told me many years ago, decades ago, that there's a door into the heart, but there's a door within the heart that leads out of the heart into the infinite. And that's what he's talking about, of the house being stilled, and he climbed by the secret ladder in darkness and concealment. On that glad night, in secret, for no one saw me, nor did I look at anything, with no other light or guide than the one that burned in my heart, that is the longing for God. This guided me, this love, guided me more surely than the light of noon, to where he, the beloved, was awaiting me. Him I knew so well, there in a place where no one appeared. That is, there's nothing there, only God, alone with the beloved. O guiding night, O night more lovely than the dawn, O night that has united the lover with his beloved, transforming the beloved into her lover. Upon my flowering breast, which I kept holy for him alone, there he lay sleeping, and I caressing him. There in a breeze from the fanning cedars. When the breeze blew from the turret, as I parted his hair, it wounded my neck with its gentle hand, suspending all my senses. I abandoned and forgot myself, laying my face on my beloved. All things ceased. I went out from myself, leaving my cares, forgotten among the lilies. So that St. John of the Cross is speaking of the state of union with God, union through love with the beloved. So whether we approach it through the path of love, whether we approach it through the path of knowledge, we come to that same infinite rest, that rest where the rest which is everything, which is devoid of nothing. It's not absence, it's fullness. So with that, I will stop. And normally I would leave time now for questions. I'm not going to do that, and I apologize for that because I have to leave shortly to go up to Trinity because there's a trucker there waiting for delivering a small cabin. And so I have to go meet him at 3 o'clock. So I'm from rest to activity. But as I said, we have to do that which is demanded of us. We have to face the challenges of life. But in the midst of that, we have to learn to find rest. Because the challenges of life don't stop until we transcend life itself. As long as we experience life, the challenges will continue. So we have to find our point of repose, not by escaping the trials of life, but in the midst of the trials of life, either through surrender or through resting in the sakshi, in consciousness. So let me give the announcements, and then I will close, and we'll have the arati. And after the arati, I'll give a collective goodbye to everyone, and then disappear. So for announcements, on Tuesday, we will have our usual Katha Upanishad class at 7:30 in the evening. And on Thursday, we will have our usual Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna class at 11 o'clock in the morning. And with that, our summer session will close. This year, I've decided to take off not just August as I normally do, but the last half of July. And so this Thursday will be our last activity until after Labor Day. So the Tuesday after Labor Day and the beginning of September, we will begin again with the Katha Upanishad, and then the gospel class, and then the Sunday lectures. And so that people know and can plan around it, we will have our Durga Puja on October 9th, Saturday, October 9th, and we're hoping to have the full Durga Puja this year. With the tent and the open Durga Puja. Of course, everything is subject to the whims of coronavirus, but well, we will adjust to that. But the plan is to have a full and open Durga Puja this year, after not being able to have it, or having a very restricted Durga Puja last year with no public attendance. So those are the announcements, and so I'll give a closing chant, and then we will have arati for those who can stay for the arati. Om Dhyo Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithivi Shanti Apa Shanti Yoshadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Sama Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace is in the heavens, peace in the skies, peace on earth, Peace is in the waters, peace in the plants and the trees. The gods are peace. Peace is the nature of truth. All is peace. Peace alone, peace. May that peace, real peace, be with us all. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe.